Now, both of my parents are still alive. I just was visiting them with them this morning. And my mom has been to the doctor and hospital a couple times. She went to the hospital for a blood test. A couple weeks later, the insurance company mailed a letter letting her know what they were paying. Well, the good news is mom and dad didn't pay for the blood test. The bad news is the insurance company paid $650 for a blood test that you can go down to CVS Pharmacy, do the same blood test for 25 bucks. Why is the hospital charging $650 for a blood test? Because they can. They're not asking you for the money, they're talking to the insurance company. Well, if they're paying $650 for my mother's blood test, how much do you think your mother would get charged? And if all of those people are paying $650 just for the blood test, what do you think is going to happen to all the insurance rates? This does not take rocket science. You give the insurance company this middleman position, because, well, gosh, I may have some kind of medical problem that I can't personally afford. So we insert those insurance companies, and now we can't afford no tongue depressor. I can't afford that. We're going to just look at my tongue. Don't use the tongue depressor. Now, I mean, this is ridiculous. I mean, people can't get reasonable health care, and again, it's because the doctors, the pharmaceutical companies, and all those companies, they're all dipping into the pie. You're not paying for health care, you're paying for the health care system. For all those people that are in the system, I mean, they're sucking blood out of your arm and they're sucking all the money out of your wallet. Tell them what they could do. Now, and this is one of the things that people are concerned about is that with this new healthcare system, it's going to be mandatory. If you don't volunteer, we're going to force you to get insurance. And they're also going to have mandatory vaccinations. How many people here are really worried about the H1N1, the swine flu? Anybody here like, oh my God, we're going to die? Okay? I mean, it's a joke. And they're going to give us mandatory vaccinations. Now, back in 2003, when I announced my presidential campaign, I announced it on President's Day in February. I thought that was kind of poetic. And they organized a small press conference for me. I think there were like 8 or 10 people there. Just a starter press conference just for me to get my feet wet and practice. I can make mistakes and there won't be a whole lot of people there to notice. And so I did my little opening presentation. The very first question was, Michael, what's your position on mandatory vaccinations? Now, keep in mind, this was back in 2003, before I became diplomatic, before I learned how to answer the question without, completely. And being an engineer, you know what the problem with engineers is? In their moments of stress, they blurt out the truth. My quote was, you bring the syringe, I'll bring my .45, we'll see who makes a bigger hole. That earned me a 1-page report in the San Antonio newspaper. And if you don't believe it, go out to the internet. You can Google me, or I think Wicked Quotes has it, and so it's one of the most famous quotes that I've had, and it turned out to be the very first one. So, if they come with their syringe, it's like, well, okay, you want to play the game, you're going to lose. So, all of the problems that we have in the United States, the economy is going south really fast because the Federal Reserve has been counterfeiting our money since 1913. Our food system is going crazy. Monsanto is buying up. How do you buy a copyright on a seed and prevent anybody from growing that seed? I mean, we really are so far out of control that when you start to wake up, I mean, it's scary. It's like waking up in the middle of an Alfred Hitchcock movie and going, oh man, I really want to just go back to sleep. You can't do that. You know, when you're on the Titanic and you go, wait a minute, the propellers are up in the air on this end, and the nose of the boat, the bow of the boat is underwater on this end. You don't have to be an admiral to know this boat is going to sink. You know, we are in really serious trouble. Thomas Jefferson said, you only have the rights that you are willing to fight for. If you want a free country where you can send your children to the type of school that you want, where you can get affordable health care, you can't sit back and do nothing. You've got to get involved. And as many of our other speakers said, you know, join up. I mean, I don't care what political party it is, but get involved. The government is taking notice. I know that the government took notice because on April 15th, we had the first wave of tea parties. They held them in 1,000 cities across the country, and they were a huge success. I know that they were a huge success because the mainstream media spent 4 days going, nothing happened, nobody showed up, don't worry about that. The people who did show up, those were all wacko extremists. It's like, if nobody showed up, they wouldn't have mentioned it at all. The fact that they spent 4 days, 96 hours, trying to convince us that all these people were wackos is indication that they noticed and they're afraid. We have 300 million Americans. We outnumber them by several orders of magnitude. Now, before I go to Q&A, I just want to, and I can't give a speech without really focusing on at least something the Founding Fathers said. Patrick Henry's famous speech, and that was one of the easier questions tonight, who said, give me liberty or give me death? And you know, like 18 hands or more jumped up right away. Think about that. Give me liberty or give me death. It's a great bumper sticker. I have at least 2 t-shirts that say that. But what does that really mean? Now, Patrick Henry identified 3 possible conditions. The first condition is that you live free in liberty. Second possibility is that you die fighting for your freedom. And the third possibility is that you give up, just roll over and live as a slave. You just willingly subordinate yourself to some other power. Now, I don't know about you, but as far as Patrick and Henry and I are concerned, living as a slave is not an option. It's not an option. I will not tote your barge, lift your bale. You know, you drag me out into the desert and say, you know, all right, dig a big hole. I'm not going to do it. I mean, if it's going to be my grave, I'm not going to die tired. The hell with you, you dig the hole. I refuse to live as a slave. Will not. No circumstance. So that only leaves liberty or death, which is the conclusion of his famous speech. My question to you, is the government allowing you to live in liberty?
No.
Well, if we remove that option from the table, the only option left is to fight for liberty. Fight and possibly die for liberty. Who are our famous heroes? Lexington and Concord. April 19th, 1775. The people, when we go out on our 4th of July celebrations, the parades and the picnics and the fireworks, the people that we are honoring are the people at Lexington and Concord who fought the local police. They shot and killed the local police because they were trying to do gun confiscation. And we went, over your dead body. And you know, the blood of patriots and tyrants, I'm sure you know that quote. So if this could get really, really dicey.